Okay, everybody, welcome back to Talk of the Now podcast. And I am your host, Gene. And it's so good to have everybody back with me. And today I have another kind of different interview slash guest today. And I have Miss Ashley Freeman. How are you doing, Ashley?
Doing well, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, me and Ashley go way back. We attended the same church for a while. And I knew her husband before even knowing her, but I didn't know y'all at the same time, kind of. But it's good to see you again.
You too. It's been a while, so I'm glad we're able to do this.
Yeah. Well, I kind of wanted to bring Ashley on because, in my opinion, Ashley is sort of has a great field that she works in. Ashley is a wonderful woman entrepreneur that's in the business of helping people, I'd say, in a lot of ways, but without I'll let you explain it, but you do work for a company called Flourishing Work LLC. Is that correct?
That's my business.
Okay. And just, I guess, tell us what you do.
Sure. I have the best job in the world. It's my dream job. Flourishing Work is the company I started about 3 years ago, 2018. And I am the lead facilitator and coach. So I facilitate workshops on a variety of interpersonal and leadership topics. And then I coach individuals on their journey.
Nice. You you have a master's. Am I correct? Is that Emory University? Is that where you got your master's? Okay. How long ago was that?
Around the same time as when I started my business. So I graduated May 2018.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what was I guess we'll start kind of from the beginning. What was sort of your career aspirations, or did you have any coming out of your undergrad, and what sort of led you into getting into this, if you don't mind me asking?
Not at all. It's a winding tale, so I'll try to keep it brief. But my undergrad is actually in French and music, so how I ended up here is it was quite a journey. So I graduated in the last recession, and so the jobs in teaching French and music were difficult to come by. So I was fortunate to have a position offered to me in the medical research field at Emory, which I graciously accepted, of course, and built a career around that. So I was there for about 10 years in various roles. And like everyone, I had, good and bad bosses. We all have that kind of journey. And that really inspired me to think about what makes a good leader, what makes a poor leader, what is leadership a thing? How do you study that? What is there a right and wrong answer? What does it mean? And so I became very curious about that. Meanwhile, I thought I wanted to go into marketing. So that's why I actually started the MBA program, was to go to transition into marketing from my sort of administrative roles. And then halfway through the MBA program, I started managing a team, and my life changed forever. So that was when I really found the passion for applied leadership, if you will, because I had been studying it in the business school as just part of our core curriculum. But when you study it at night, see, I was in the evening MBA program and then applying it by day with my team. When you see the magic that happens when you apply the theory in actual practice, oh man, I just fell in love. So I loved managing, and the reason that I launched out on my own was that I just wanted simply to be able to impact more lives than my one team. I loved what I did as a manager, building trust and helping people develop in their career paths. Very meaningful work, but I just wanted to have a bigger impact. So I decided to launch my business so that I could teach interpersonal and leadership skills on a much wider scale and coach individuals. So it just allows me to have a wider audience, a bigger impact.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What I had a few questions that I wanted to ask that I came up with that I think are something that an audience might want to know, or I even want to know. What do you love about what you do?
That's a great question. And it really gets to that impact I was talking about. So even in the span of one coaching hour, I have the privilege of watching somebody's life get better. So whether that's getting more clarity or solving a pain point, they either feel a sigh of relief, or they have this light bulb moment, and just keep being able to see their face light up after just even 1 hour of coaching is just the best feeling in the entire world. And
Mhm.
the same thing applies when I'm facilitating. It's a little bit longer process where I'm developing the material and facilitating for multiple hours at a time, depending on the engagement. So it's just a little bit longer process, but the same thing. You get to see lives change, hearts open up, eyes bright.
Mhm.
It's just that impact that you see even in the span of an hour. It's just amazing.
Can you think of any, I guess, maybe, I mean, obviously you don't have to use any names or specifics, but are there a couple of success stories that stand out to you?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, let me see. There was one that stands out that I'm thinking of where I had a coaching client in a corporate setting who was really struggling with needing to give their manager some feedback, and ask for something that they weren't getting,
Mhm.
but were afraid to approach that conversation. Afraid is kind of a strong word. It was just as a hesitancy and just kind of getting stuck around how to frame that conversation. And so a great coach will help you think through on your own kind of how to reframe a situation or find clarity in a situation. So we just talked through some ways to approach that conversation, and by the end of it, this this client just absolutely lit up and said, not only do I know how to do this, I just would have never thought that I could approach the same conversation, but in different ways. And now I'm excited to go into work today.
Hmm.
And to have that outcome, after just an hour of coaching is I just love it.
Oh, I bet. One of the things that I see as somebody that's worked in corporate for more than 15 years, a big struggle that we have as employees, a lot of times I found you have the executive side, the managerial side, then you have the employee side. And as an employee, I feel like you're sort of, you're on the corporate ladder, so to speak. And a lot of times you're looking for ways to get ahead, so to speak, or to I guess advance, so to speak. And so I thought about that before. What do you have people that ask you about this? Because I've wondered myself. There's always that argument of what do I do to well, flourish. That's a good word to use. Flourish in my job so that I get noticed, and that when and if a time comes for promotion, how do I set myself up for that? Is that a relevant question that somebody might come to you with?
Of course, yeah. There's a couple of workshops I teach on similar topics. One is personal brand, and I think that's kind of more of the topic you're
Mm,
referring to. And so, I guess if I had to give one key takeaway from that, the one I would probably zero in on is that people can't read your mind.
mm,
And so if you aren't putting yourself out there, or there's any infinite number of ways you can do this, updating your social media with the keywords that you want to be known for, or taking on projects. If it's something you enjoy, it's not really going to drain you to take on a little bit of extra work. But are there other meetings you can join that you're not currently part of? Because if you're not in, let's say you want to move into a sales role, if you're not in the sales meetings or talking to any of the salespeople, nobody's going to associate you with sales, and they can't read your mind. so um, you kind of have to make that known, and there are, like I said, a lot of different ways that you can do that. But if you are consistently performing and doing the tasks that are just part of your job description, then there's not really a way that other people are going to associate you with something else. Unfortunately, as much as I wish it were the case, we don't all have that sort of mentor or sponsor in our company who's watching our career path and thinking about the next step for us. We really have to completely take ownership of that. And whether it's within the same company or another one, it's the same process. It's just making sure that you're having conversations. Are you taking people to coffee virtually or in person? Whatever your comfort level is. Are
mhm.
you are you being included on some of the meetings on that topic? What do people come to you for advice about? I had a client one time who her answer to that question was IT problems. And she wanted to be a manager in the company. And so we talked about how, well, in order to dissociate with the brand of being the IT girl, there has to be some proactive work of, first of all, helping some of the people solve some of their own problems, empowering them to understand how to fix those issues without needing to come to her, because that really wasn't her role anyway. But then also being proactive about what she does want to be known for. So if she wants to be known for management potential, can she talk to some of her colleagues about some articles that she's read? Can she let her boss know that she's looking for those roles? Can she network within the company and talk to people who are in similar roles that she's looking for? So there are just tons of things that you can do. And I guess the only other thing I would add is there's a risk there of the easy route is what you've always done and being known for more of that. But if you don't love what you do, then you want to tweak what you're known for so that you get more of what you love. So, just being proactive about, okay, well, what do I like about my role and what I would not like, and what do I want more of and less of? Because if you're really good at, say, the example I like to give in the talk I give about this is, I had a department chairman that associated me highly with reporting. And he said to my boss at the time, he said, I see Ashley's role as a reporting role. Well, not only was that not my job, but it's not what I wanted to be known for. I absolutely hated running reports. You can tell with my career choice, I love people. I want to be working with people and helping people, not running reports and thinking about numbers. And, so it was not the brand I wanted. But it was something that I had to be very proactive about. Okay, clearly I don't want to be known for that, because I may be very good at it. It's so good that the department chairman sees that as my entire job, but that's not what I want to be known for. So let me still do a good job, because it's my job to run those reports, but let me be proactive about being known for what I want more of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really good. I see that there's a gap, and I think that speaks to a little bit of what you're talking about, between a company and its employees when it comes to career development. Even based on myself or others that I've known, like you said, where you have somebody that's maybe running reports all day and they're just sitting there kind of thinking, yes, that's the 18,000th bean that I've counted today, whereas they would rather be in HR, bringing somebody in and saying, tell me, what do you want to do with yourself, as opposed to another person that might be in HR saying, oh my gosh, I've got to interview another person today, but I'd rather be over there running Excel reports all day. I feel like there's a gap between, and to me, this is a big question that I don't think a lot of companies know how to answer, or even employees. Like, let's just think about 1800 or 1820, that period. I recently read a biography of Benjamin Franklin, and back in those days, a guy, if he wanted to, say for instance, Benjamin Franklin, they were mentorship was like fun, like that was the way to go, whether it be you grew up on your dad's farm, your parents' farm, or you started working like he did in the candle industry because his dad was a candle maker, and his brother eventually became a printer, and so it was sort of like a deal where they would like sort of apply for apprenticeships. Like he became an apprentice at his brother's printing company. And so I've always wondered, if companies are having a hard time doing this when, you have a bottom line, say for instance, you're creating widgets every day, or you're giving a service for somebody, you have those deadlines to meet, those SLAs as they call them. But you have that, for instance, you have that person that's sitting there, they're counting those widgets every day, but they would be the perfect analyst, or they would be a great, let's just use an industry, accounting. They might be a great person to be at a managerial level, but they've been there and they're sort of in that rut of just, they just do their spreadsheets or whatever they do with accounting every day. It seems to me like a lot of companies have a hard time identifying who those people are and helping them, And I'm not saying it's on the company to do that, but it seems like they have a hard time getting them to where they need to be. So like if you're, let's say your name is Mary and you're in accounts payable, but you'd really like to be in HR or you'd really like to get into IT. I've always wondered, is it the would it I think that it would be a lot helpful if companies would help them with doing career assessment to where they could see how do you bridge that gap. So, because she's obviously an asset and would be an asset if she were in um, the field that she wanted to be in.
Right.
But oftentimes I feel like she ends up having to look outside the company. And so that company has to pay, someone else to do it for them. And then the other company she goes to, they have to make that other investment. You know what I mean? So I don't really know where I'm going with that, but that seems like an issue to me.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and I think you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about kind of the business outcomes as a result of it, because we all have to choose priorities, and we've got to, as in organizations, think about what's impacting the bottom line, whether you're for profit or nonprofit. You've got to get the job done and the goals met. But what you're pointing out is exactly true, which is that if an employee has a passion area in a role that they're not in, they would be more motivated and energized to do that other role. And so as a organization leader, you would get more work out of that person. So it's not just a altruistic, oh, let's make sure everybody's happy kind of thing. It's actually better outcomes when you think that way. So, I mean, to your point about how do you practically do that? Well, there are certainly any number of ways that you could do it.
Mm.
But I think that you also kind of hinted at that it's a two-way street. You said you don't think it's entirely on the business or the organization, and I agree. I don't think that again, they can't read the employee's mind. The employee's got to say, I have an interest in this. So it's absolutely got to be a two-way street.
Mhm.
There's got to be what we call psychological safety, where the employee feels safe speaking up, because some people are going to feel like if they don't feel safe speaking up, that if they say they don't like their job or that there could be improvement, that there might be some consequences to that. So on the leader's end, there's got to be some psychological safety to help that employee feel like they can speak up, some demonstration that you care about what that employee wants to do, asking questions like, where would you like to be in 5 years and how can I help you get there? It's going to benefit the company in the long term to have those kind of conversations, even if the employee wants to leave. I mean, think about someone who's absolutely miserable and hates what they do. Wouldn't you rather have someone who likes it?
Right.
So either way, it's gonna benefit the bottom line to have those conversations. When employees feel appreciated, they work much harder. But again,
Mhm.
it's a two-way street. You have to say what you're interested in as an employee, be willing to take on some extra projects, but if you enjoy it, it's not going to be that draining to you. So it works out really well. But then also on the organization and on the frontline manager side, all of those are kind of in alignment around that bigger purpose, then that's where those opportunities exist.
When do you think a employee, like we'll use again Mary as our example, uh, when do you think she should decide that she should leave company X to go to company C, and start getting her resume ready when she feels like, all they want me to do is stay in accounts payable. They're not interested in me ever working in HR or getting into the IT department to become like a business analyst.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't think there's a single right answer, but some thoughts that come to mind. I would first test that assumption, because it's really easy, and I'm certainly guilty in the past as well, of just not really having that conversation.
Mm.
If you're at the point where you're ready to leave, then you should probably at least take some risk and say, if it's that bad, even if you don't feel that supported by your manager. So I would just first test the assumption. Are you sure
Yeah.
that they really aren't interested? Or is there an assumption there that because they said X or they acted a certain way, that, or they didn't treat another employee, that let's just be sure first before we take drastic measures. But yeah, I would say, absolutely, none of us is guaranteed another week on earth. So don't stay in a place that you're miserable, by all means. If you have another option, start looking, see what else is out there. Even looking to see what else is out there doesn't mean you have to take another role, by the way.
Hmm.
So I think it's incredibly helpful exercise to look around, see what else is out there, see if it would be a better fit. If so, great. If not, then you gained perspective to realize that you actually do have it really good. You may, be able to take on some extra projects or help in another department or get involved in some, outside of work type of thing, in your local community, part of your family, helping a friend. There are all kinds of ways that you could find meaning in what you do. So yeah, I would say that for me, that threshold would be you've tried, you've had that conversation, you've tried, you have felt unsupported for some time. It's not just a short-term type of thing. You've really given your effort and exhausted the resources, brought in some other people into it. And if you just truly feel unsupported and that there isn't a path, then like I said, life is too short,
Yeah.
definitely see what you can do to find meaning in work.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. You advised me a while back. I was already sort of doing it, but you sort of reiterated it in a lot of ways. I'm a big fan of this guy named Brian Buffini. He's a real estate dude that's Irish, and he moved to America at the age. He has a incredible story. He moved here maybe in the early 80s, and he literally had like $2 in his pocket and came to America, moved to San Diego, and started basically a real estate empire. But he started out just painting. He was a painter, painted houses with his dad in Ireland, and then he came to America. Started out from there, and like he at one point he was like $200,000 in debt, and then eventually got out of that, got into real estate. I mean, he's worth multi millions now, but he has a great podcast that I listen to from time to time, and like what you do is a lot of what he talks about. Just sort of the finding your purpose, if you will, finding your calling, vocation, not necessarily job. And job could be it one day, but he really goes into that. And that reminds me of that. For instance, I'm big into art, drawing, painting. It's something I like to do. I like the creative arts. And there's a couple of projects that I've been doing, including this podcast, which is why you're on it for one reason. So thank you there. But there's been things. I'm working on a short film now, sort of a comedy short film. It's going really slow. I'm working on the podcast. I've belted out about almost 8 episodes, which is really fun. Doing both interviews and kind of just back and forth with a semi co-host named Jason. And I've been trying to work more on my drawing and art skills, such as maybe even looking into trying to learn animation just as a new skill to learn and see how I like it, because I used to draw cartoon characters as a kid, and I always liked it. And I sort of think, well, what happened to that? Why don't I get back in that? So I think that the things and lessons that you're talking about really, when people start looking, instead of having that I guess laser focus or blinders over the eyes like the horses have, sometimes it can be good to look in your peripheral to see what else is out there.
Yeah, it's really well said, because I think I used the word easy earlier. It's really easy to just do what you've done and go to the next logical step of, if you're a manager, go to senior manager, or if you're a specialist, go to whatever. It's just so easy. Now, it doesn't mean enjoyable, but easy, because it's kind of the logical next step. But if you really want to find purpose, and this is part of what I'm writing a book on finding your career purpose, and what I write in there is it's not a logical path. The logical stuff is really important, and it's supposed to be something you do in conjunction with it. But if you want to find meaningful, purposeful work, you've got to listen to how you feel, which doesn't mean that I'm all about touchy-feely. That's not what I mean.
Right.
What I mean is that only you know how you feel. So if you try the animation and you feel a sense of repulsion toward it, nobody else can feel that for you and say you shouldn't do that. Only you can feel that. So those are what I call emotional leads, or whatever you want to call it. But just it's a clue that that's not, if that's how it makes you feel, and that's not going to be purposeful work for you, or meaningful, or fulfilling, whatever word you want to use. Whereas if you read a job description, or you go interview for a company, let's say you're just checking out what's in the periphery, as you said. You interview for a company and you just feel this sense of excitement. Well, again, nobody can feel that for you. Somebody who's, say, a career coach, wonderful, very, very helpful people, and I highly recommend them. But where their help ends is to say, well, this is kind of your next step that would make sense for your career, or what are you interested in, and how we can fit the pieces together. Again, very important stuff, but they can't feel that sense of excitement when you go interview for a company. And you may not know why you feel that way, but that's what you have to follow if you want to find meaningful work. Your job is simply to keep relentlessly following those little leads that you get until that feeling gets stronger and stronger.
Mhm.
If you find your career purpose, it'll be like you're jumping out of your, you want to jump out of your body. You're so excited.
I feel like I heard or read this somewhere that it's a good idea nowadays. You think about our economy, how crazy it is compared to like 1978, for instance. You think about like 1978. Okay, first off, it was mostly men, probably in most corporations, smoke-filled rooms. I'm sure I know they had a lot of females that worked as well, but a lot of times I guess they were maybe secretaries or receptionists or teachers or nurses, that sort of thing. Um, but a lot of times it was go to school, try to land a job, work in that company till you're, hopefully 60 years old, retire, get your pension, etc. It seems like nowadays it's almost like um, I guess maybe sort of like comparable to a professional sport. So we don't make nearly the kind of money they do, where it's like everybody's sort of a free agent, and if this person doesn't like this company, they may just leave in 2 years, or they may just get furloughed in 2 years. So it seems like there's a guy named Scott Adams, and he wrote a book, something to the effect of how to succeed by failing or something of that nature. I can not remember the name of it to save my life right now, but he basically talks about having a talent stack where you're basically adding to your repertoire, if you will, of what you know how to do and what you're good at. So, for instance, for me, when I'm learning animation, I'm adding to that talent stack. I enjoy woodworking. I'm adding to that talent stack. So, for instance, maybe if I get laid off a year from now, if I've worked up my woodworking skills and I need to put food on the table, well, maybe I can go find a job working for a carpenter in a woodworking shop, doing that for a while, et cetera. You know what I mean? So I think that, to me, that is a huge thing nowadays in this economy. I mean, the big joke last year was, I don't know if you remember, they were talking in the media a lot about some of the pipeline workers that had been laid off. And they were told, some, I don't know if it was the president, someone said, well, maybe they can start learning code. I mean, it's kind of a joke, but at the same time, there's some truth to that. There's nothing wrong with pursuing your passions and hobbies and getting new ones.
Right. And to your point, how do you know that you don't like it until you try it? It may not be the coding itself, but it may be the type of people that you work with, or the type of clients, or the environment. Being able to, if you're more introverted, maybe you realize that you hated the office environment, and it's great that you get to kind of be alone more. I mean, who knows until you try it,
Mhm.
and feel like I was talking about, feeling, what it feels like. And it, a lot of people that I work with get a little bit stuck with kind of the first step. So they think, oh well, if I like, I just, if I like animals, and the only option is to work in an animal shelter, and then I don't feel like that particular vocation would pay the bills. Well, okay, but there's a lot more ways that you could work with animals. So let's not get stuck there and start exploring. And that's what when I talk about the leads.
Right.
Okay, right, start there. Absolutely, you got to start somewhere. So start there, see how you feel about that particular role, and then kind of follow what excites you and what repels you, and then look for the next step. What it takes is creativity.
Mm.
Back to kind of several of your questions today, that's what it takes, is creativity and intention. Just being willing to think of possibilities. You don't have to do it alone. You can work with a significant other, or a friend, or a mentor, or whoever. But just being intentional to take that time to think about, how can I do both? How can I do what I love and make money at it? How can I work from home and have colleagues I love? Whatever the question is you're trying to ask, it just requires some creativity and intention.
Mhm. The book that I was trying to think of is How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big by Scott Adams.
Sounds like a great book.
He is the cartoonist, by the way. It's funny I speak of animation. He's the cartoonist of the Dilbert cartoons, if you're familiar with
Oh,
those.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. He's an interesting guy. He has YouTube channel that he every morning I think he calls it Coffee with Scott Adams. It's interesting the topics he covers. He sort of like covers and talks about the news of the day and his take on it. It's interesting. But he does have a few career advice things that I've found interesting. They're sort of thinking outside of the box of just your normal thing. So Ashley, before we start wrapping it up, maybe another good question to round that out would be, I don't know if you have any statistics on hand, but maybe you have any other statistics about jobs and sort of what we're looking at, as well as what, if not, or as well as maybe what would be some career advice that you might give either a young person that's in their 20s or maybe someone that's career changing, like that's in their 30s up to their 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess I'll start with your second question. I don't
Mm,
offhand have any statistics that come to mind, but as far as advice, I think, uh, you know, one thing I see people struggle with is stepping stones, if you will. So there seems on both ends of that spectrum that you're talking about, somebody changing a career or someone just starting out, there just seems to be a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves. It could be external as well, to find that perfect next thing. And sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes in order to get to point C, you got to go through point A and point B. And maybe that means taking a job that's a pay cut. But that doesn't mean you stay there. It's a stepping stone. The point is you're getting somewhere. So you're getting closer. That's what matters, is that you get closer to what you love. So if you sit around waiting for the perfect job to come. I mean, in my case, it took 7 years from the time that I was sitting there thinking, what do I want to do? What's meaningful to me to today when I have my dream job. It's not something that's going to happen overnight for most people. So just taking that pressure off from having a stepping stone is huge. It is, as long as you don't stay there, it's a means to get somewhere else. And as long as you're getting closer, that's what matters.
oh, great. Yeah. All right, Ashley. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. But unless you, do you have any other final thoughts for us today? Any gleaming thoughts that come to mind about your business and what you do?
Oh goodness. Yeah, I would just say, again, just kind of reiterate something I said earlier is that none of us are guaranteed tomorrow or next week.
Mm,
Life is, I would just say life is too short to live in a job where you're miserable. And it's up to you to make that positive change. No one is going to do that for you. So I would just encourage people to
yeah,
really take that step to find meaningful work, because you deserve it and we only get one life.
that's true. Well, I think I've got a lot more questions to ask you, but maybe I can have you on again sometime and
Sure.
we can get a little bit more into it. I'd also love to talk more about how, you know, being a female entrepreneur, in today's crazy economy is, how your faith plays a role in these things and so forth. So maybe next time I have you on, we'll get more into that stuff if you're up for it.
Sounds like a plan. Let's do it. Part two.
Okay. What about your how people, if you you want anybody to get in touch with you or have you, or see what you do? Do you want to give any websites or anything?
Sure. It's just what we've been talking about. My company name, flourishingworkllc.com. So that's probably the easiest way, because there are links there to all my social media and things from there, and my email and phone number and so forth. But I would say most of my followers are on Instagram, so that's same thing, Flourishing Work LLC. So either of those.
Okay, Ashley. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure as well. Take care.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.